Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. In today's episode, we're going to revisit the race weekend at Pocono, including multiple interesting remarks during media availabilities, with Carson Hocevar addressing his Mexico comments and his incident with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Stenhouse sharing his candid feelings on the Spire driver. Chase Elliott sounding off on why NASCAR needs to be careful about changing a long-time tradition, and Kyle Busch throwing some shade at Dale Jr. in his crew chiefing role. Plus, we'll discuss Friday's Truck Series race and the aforementioned Hocevar, once again making headlines for his harsh criticism, this time taking aim at the series managing director. The Xfinity Series race and Dale Jr.'s style of crew chiefing that I thought was really interesting, and of course we'll recap Sunday's rain-delayed race at Pocono, and Chase Briscoe earning his first win at Joe Gibbs Racing. However, before we break down that race, let's go back to Friday's Truck Series race at the Tricky Triangle, and specifically the end of the race on a restart with 19 laps to go. Corey Heim, who has already got 4 wins to his credit this year, could have had multiple additional wins if it wasn't for some weird things happening to him. On Friday, it happened again. The number 11 Tricon pilot was running up front going into the restart when he radioed to his team that he believed he had a right rear tire going down. He was right, and immediately pulled off to the side and dropped to the back of the field before a trip down pit road. With Heim out, that meant Lane Riggs, who was second and had lined up on the inside of row 1 next to Heim, was now the control car. Kevin Harvick accurately described that on the Fox broadcast. On the restart, Hocevar clearly got a jump ahead of Riggs. NASCAR initially said the restart was under review before confirming the number 7 Spire Trucks penalty, to which Hocevar strongly disagreed.
We need to pit this time. Joe. Yes, sir. Series is becoming a joke. Copy. Good job, Seth. Hey, man.
After running out the final 19 laps and finishing 13th, Hocevar was still frustrated and probably more so considering Riggs won the race.
Should have won. Somebody doesn't know the rule.
On Saturday, Hocevar was asked about what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it, for sure. I mean, we all did. My team was on it. We were all on it. Obviously, I think we all, this instance kind of came up at the Brickyard, right? So, we were in the race and studied it, right? So we instantly knew, all right, the 34 is the control car. Perfect. I'm not sure he knew that or their team knew that. So it started slowing the field down a lot. I wish I, just at least waited to the second line. But with me starting to get pushed and having Michigan truck restarts in my head, I just decided to go and see what they would have called, considering the pace was a lot slower. And they called us. So, I felt like I did the best to try to at least give ourselves a fighting shot, where if I kept backing the field down because he was kind of waiting on me to go, that we probably would have got spun anyways and then your race is over. So I tried what I thought in the moment was try to keep our truck rolling and fight for another lap, and we just never got a yell. I thought NASCAR did a pretty good job, honestly, with it all, right? I mean, things just happen so fast. So everything can always be better and avoid it, and these circumstances are very unique. So now that it's happened, the second time I go around, everybody's gonna have it kind of figured out.
He definitely changed his tune on his feelings about NASCAR, and as you might have guessed, that wasn't the main thing reporters wanted to ask the 22-year-old driver. There were 2 pressing topics lingering over for Mexico. First, we'll start with his comments criticizing the country, and he addressed the topic when asked if he felt officials in the organization were getting frustrated with him.
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. Number one, I think everybody in my inner circle, number one, wants the best for me and in our group, right? For number one. Number 2, I think everybody, I feel like I put myself out there a lot more, right? And my team has, the issue wasn't, for the team having their, kind of frustrations was not that I'm giving my opinion and putting it out there. It's just the fact that, my opinion wasn't my opinion. It was just based off everybody else, that I've heard or seen or anything, right? I didn't go do my own homework and voice my own opinion. When I didn't give it a shot. I didn't give it a chance. I didn't go walk around. I didn't go see it. When I did, then it, hindsight's 2020. Then I have my own opinion, but I've already put it out there. So I think that was the biggest thing. Was like, I wasn't doing what I pride myself of doing, of just having my own opinion and putting it out there and being me. I just didn't give it a fair shot. So I think that's where it all stems from.
So those were his comments on his criticism of Mexico. The other big story from south of the border was his run-in with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Here's what he had to say about that.
Got any conversations with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. this week or this weekend?
No. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not sure what I would say, right? There's nothing that really would change it, right? We've already had that conversation. I feel like we have a good relationship, or had one, right? It was just, just running behind him, just kind of logging laps, and just locked up in a very dumb spot, and it was just so dumb, really, and just a mistake that didn't need to happen and didn't want it to happen, and but there's nothing that I could do or say. I can't go buy him a Hallmark card and really make things better. So which sucks. It sucks for me because he's the only NASCAR driver that owns a sprint car team, and I love sprint cars. So it sucks because I want to go talk to him about a sprint car team. So hopefully everything can be set. But I know the scorecard has me ahead right now, unfortunately.
And here's what Stenhouse had to say about it.
Honestly, tired of talking about the kid. Eventually it'll come to a head, in the right place, right time, eventually. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but, he probably will be looking over his shoulder for a long time, and we'll just see how that goes.
This clearly isn't over, and you have to think with Stenhouse being the veteran, he's going to let it linger and play mental games with his younger counterpart, which we would see play out on Sunday. There were a couple of other comments from media availabilities that I wanted to discuss, and one of them was what Chase Elliott had to say when asked about finishing third in Mexico and standing on the podium after the race, and if he had any desire to see that type of post-race celebration for NASCAR in the future.
Yeah, I'm not really for it, or I'm not really against it. I'm fine with it. I have no problem, giving Shane his congratulations and making sure that he is celebrated properly. He won the race. He deserved the right to that. Me being the second loser, I can certainly get in there and make sure that I can appreciate the job that he did. I guess that's kind of what you're getting at. I mean, there's no doubt. Would I have rather that been me? Yeah, no question. It's not normal for us, so I think I'm okay with it. I'm okay with doing it. I'm okay with not doing it. I want to make sure that we are if that's going to be a new thing, then totally fine. We can start a new tradition, but that's not historically been us. So I just want to make sure our focus is being us as NASCAR, and that's okay. We're our own form of motorsports, and I think we can stand on our own 2 feet, and we can do our own thing, and so as long as we're not doing it to be like everybody else, I'm fine. But if that's the case, then I'm also good not doing it.
I thought it was interesting hearing Elliott say how, quote, it has not historically been us, so I just want to make sure our focus is being us as NASCAR, and that's okay, end quote. I think many fans would agree. And our last comments from drivers visiting with reporters were the remarks of Kyle Busch when asked about how difficult the transition is for Dale Earnhardt Jr., serving as crew chief on the number 88 Xfinity Series car of Connor Zilisch.
It's all publicity, but spin it how you want it. He's just going to be a a warm body sitting on top of the box. You know, they've got enough stuff from the shop and enough technology these days of being able to have the crew chief still involved. So, you know, I could say I could do the same thing, you know, with one of my truck teams, but the guys at the shop would be the ones handling it. But still great, you know, cool eyeballs and, you know, putting some attention on their team and stuff like that. I mean, JRM's one of the top 2-3 teams in the Xfinity Series, and so may the best man win.
Unsurprisingly, there were some fans who didn't like the tone of Busch's remarks toward Earnhardt. As a result, Rowdy provided clarification a little bit later on X, saying, quote, "This has nothing to do with any animosity towards Dale Jr. I'm referencing how silly the suspensions for crew chiefs are these days, with all the technology they have to stay in contact with their teams. I'd say the same thing if Jeff Gordon went on an HMS box as a crew chief," end quote. Moving on from driver interviews and Kyle Busch to practice and qualifying with his brother Kurt. The 2004 Cup Series champion, who was the Grand Marshal for the weekend at Pocono, appeared on the prime set during the session and made an interesting admission when asked what it's been like since it was announced that he was going to be inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
You know, it's not always peaches and cream and sunshine and rainbows, but man, it's just an honor to go in on first ballot and to take it all in. I haven't been back to Pocono since my accident, so it's like a cleansing, purging weekend as well.
Hearing those words, you could totally sympathize with Busch, knowing it was that track where his Hall of Fame career came to an end 3 years earlier. Moving on to later in the day in the Xfinity Series race. Connor Zilisch won for the first time on an oval, and Dale Jr. won for the first time as a crew chief. I listened to the number 88 radio for much of the race, and I wanted to share with you a late race exchange between Jr. and Zilisch because it really captured how Earnhardt crew chiefed the race. It wasn't someone who was formulating strategy or even listening to others formulate strategy and giving the orders as Kyle Busch suggested, but someone who coached up his driver while providing a bit of context. Take a listen.
Yeah, I didn't get a good push from anybody there. He came at me with a little bit too much of a run and just pushed me out. That's okay, man. You're doing good. Just let's have some good clean restarts here. At 17, he's kick ass for a reason. Just sit up there and do what you can. Yeah, 10-4. This is where we should finish at worst today. We got a shot to win. We still do. But third place is a good finish. Yep, copy that.
Just a cool exchange between Jr. and Zilisch. Now, let's move on to yesterday's Cup Series race. And the first thing I was looking for in the race at the Tricky Triangle was if one of the facts I mentioned in Friday's video would come true. And that was there had been a caution in the first 15 laps of the race in each of the last 7 races. Well, that streak was snapped. There wasn't a yellow displayed in that entire first stage. Honestly, the only thing of interest in that first stage was a late near-miss incident for Kyle Busch, who was struggling with his car and the gusty winds around the 2.5-mile track. When the first yellow of the day was displayed, it came at the stage 1 break, and after pole sitter Denny Hamlin had led every lap and Chris Buescher, who had started second, followed him the entire time. Those two were followed by Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, and Eric Jones. But as is often the case when one stage is quiet, the next one makes up for it. And we didn't even have to go past the stage break for our first action of the day. It came on pit road, and once again it came courtesy of Kyle Busch.
All right, guy, anything I want to work on? We were too fast, section 5.
For those of you keeping count at home, that's Busch's 5th speeding penalty in 2025. On the restart, with pit strategy and teams on different cycles throughout the day, Brad Keselowski and Carson Hocevar moved up to the front and battled with Ty Gibbs right behind. We had our first caution for cause on lap 42 when Riley Herbst lost his brakes and slammed hard into the outside wall. It was a precursor of things to come. On the pit stops, we had a really scary incident on pit road when AJ Allmendinger hit his tire carrier, who was carrying a couple of tires, knocking one of them out of his hands and launching it into the air before it slammed into the face of a pit crew member on the number 88 of Shane Van Gisbergen. You can see how he is obviously wobbled by the hit, but then unbelievably gets up, changes both tires, and finishes the stop. Then, a few seconds later, he has enough of his bearings to show his displeasure with the dinger. Just a reminder that these guys on pit road are absolute warriors and put their bodies on the line every Sunday as well. When the racing action resumed, it didn't take long for our next break. brought to you by the failing brakes of another 2311 racing car. This time, it was Bubba Wallace's turn. I recorded the video from his in-car camera, and it's actually pretty scary because you get to see and hear in real time what it's like for a driver who knows that they've had a tire failure of some sort and realize that they're heading straight for the fence.
Oh my God. Hold it up there. Hold it up there. In the fence. Your brakes.
Painful to watch and to listen to. Thankfully, Wallace was okay. Exploding brake rotors are an oddity by themselves. They don't happen very often. On the subsequent pit stop, things got really weird as race leader Brad Keselowski made a mistake I haven't seen in a long, long time.
Hey, come on. Here's speed in 3, 2, 1. 4, Brad. 4 tires. 4 tires. Yeah, you get no takers here, Brad. You are going to be 10 away, clear in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Not sure what happened there. There was a lot of people talking about coming. 4, head down, run our race here. A good chance this comes right back to us. I didn't hear nothing. Was that the choose? No. Time. We're going to have to go to the back here, Brad. We pit her on a closed pit road. It was red. Just trying to figure out why nobody pitted. I did not know pit road was closed. I did not hear him say it was open or closed.
So that was Keselowski's mistake, going down pit road when it was closed. Take a listen to what William Byron's team had to say about it when it happened.
Still closed, still red. There's no light. Light's red. Holy shit.
Remember, I told you the action in this stage more than made up for the quiet of the first stage. And we weren't done. On the next restart, the racing gods smiled down on us as we had Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Carson Hocevar racing together. But they weren't just racing together. The Spire driver was directly behind the number 47 car. There was obviously tension with what's happened between the pair over the last several weeks. And I thought Jeff Gluck's tweet about it was absolutely perfect when he wrote, quote, Carson Hocevar is racing Ricky Stenhouse Jr. like he's going to get hit with a red turtle shell the moment he makes the pass, end quote. Mario Kart, anyone? But wait, there's more. After Michael McDowell suffered the third brake rotor issue in the stage, which resulted in NASCAR inexplicably waiting for 3 laps to put out the caution, yes, 3 laps around the 2.5-mile track before throwing a caution for debris which was clearly on the front stretch based on the radios from the different teams, Hocevar and Stenhouse restarted on the front row. Chase Briscoe gave Hocevar a good push out in front for the lead before the number 19 driver decided to move out to the point. And then what happened next is almost something I expected, as Hocevar didn't even try to stay in front of Stenhouse, but just let the number 47 car go by him on the outside. Remember how I mentioned earlier that the veteran would be playing mind games with the younger driver? Well, here we are. Just 4 laps later, we had our next incident when Kyle Busch's rough day continued. The number 8 car getting loose and sideways, starting his second multi-car crash in as many weeks. This one involved Christopher Bell, SVG, and Ty Dillon. That 4th caution tied for the most in his stage at Pocono in the Gen 7 car. We finally made it to the end of the stage a few laps later with Briscoe out front. He was followed by Josh Berry, Chase Elliott, William Byron, and Chris Buescher. In that third and final stage, we returned to the quietness of stage 1. The main story in that third stage was fuel mileage and who would execute the best strategy. It would all come down to green flag pit stops, and they started around lap 120. When race leader Chase Briscoe came down pit road, his crew chief James Small told him to wait on him before going. Watch what happened.
10 away. All right, on your left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Square with the box going on me.
That was Small telling Briscoe to wait over and over, and you could even see the pit crew members trying to stop the driver. You could also almost see the number 19 driver hesitating coming out of his stall. By then, it was too late. He had made his bed. Unsurprisingly, that became the storyline as Steve Letarte talked for several minutes about how the number 19 team pulled off an 11-second pit stop while Chris Buescher and the others waited for fuel and went closer to 14 seconds. Letarte wasn't sure if that short stop by the JGR car was by design. All he had to do was watch that video and he would have known. That became clear a little later when Small told Briscoe over the radio that they were, quote, effed because he didn't wait for enough fuel and it was going to be imperative for him to max save the rest of the way. That became the question. Could Briscoe save enough fuel to the end and hold off his JGR teammate in Denny Hamlin, who was right behind him? Turns out he could. Briscoe recorded the third win of his career and his first at Joe Gibbs Racing, locking himself into the playoffs. After the race, Briscoe talked about making the mistake and still managing to hold off Hamlin for the win. But I thought the most interesting thing he said was the pressure he's been feeling as he watched his two teammates win 6 out of the season's first 16 races.
Yeah, it's unlike anything I've ever had in my career. I mean, the only exception I would say was, being teammates with Kevin, but even when I was there, Kevin wasn't really winning either. So, that expectation was always there with Kevin, but the rest of us, it wasn't necessarily, guys winning week in and week out, where now you come to JGR and, Bell's won 3 races, Denny's won, I think, 3, and me and Ty hadn't won yet. And last couple weeks especially, I've just been like this huge weight on my shoulders, unlike anything I've ever experienced before. And my wife's been like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, I have to win. Like, I don't think you realize how bad it is if we don't win a race and lock into the playoffs. So, yeah, I feel like I honestly weigh like 100 pounds less already. But, yeah, it's I mean, literally, when I was doing my contract with JGR, I remember them showing me this stat thing about how out of 40 attempts for playoffs, they've made it 38 times. And the expectation is if you don't make the playoffs, you're not going to be in this car anymore.
I have to believe that win ramps up the pressure on Ty Gibbs, too. There was one other thing that I wanted to share with you guys that came post-race. I was watching Ryan Blaney's post-race interview on Prime, and having interviewed him multiple times in the past few years, I knew something was off. Turns out he was not feeling well. According to reporter Colin Ward, Ryan Blaney fell to his knees multiple times after the race and stayed down for a while, clearly exhausted. He got up briefly to do a TV interview and went back down. He stayed down waiting for the AMR safety team and rode off to the care center on a golf cart. Looked like his legs were cramping, more than likely dehydration. Brad Keselowski responded to the post and made a somewhat surprising revelation. Observation from driver intros. Most all of the drivers are still sick and dehydrated from last week. I've never seen so many sick drivers before the start of the race. I read that and my stomach hurt, literally, because as I've said for the last 2 weeks, even before the race in Mexico, I went down there in September to Cancun and have never been so sick to my stomach when I came back. It lasted for close to a month. So this tracks out with what these guys are experiencing and also lines up with what Joey Logano said last week on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, that there were multiple drivers sick before last Sunday's race. Hopefully, Blaney and the rest of the drivers and anybody else who got sick from going down there will get to be feeling better soon. And lastly, a little business to take care of, and I think you're going to like it. I'm excited to let you guys in on something that I've been working on for the last few months, and that is I'm adding things to my channel store. Right now, there's only my Beatin' and Bangin' hats and shirts. Well, that's going to change real soon, as I'll regularly be adding cool items in there, including more shirts as well as things for your man cave, like this LED sign, or some NASCAR-centric prints like this one. But I want you guys to be involved, so this is going to be an interactive experience. What do I mean by that? I'm going to regularly ask you guys what you would like to see included in the shop. For example, in the future, I'll have like 3 options for prints, and whatever you guys vote on, I'll include it in the store. However, before we get to that point, I want to put this out there. What would you like to see in there? No idea is too crazy. Obviously, we're NASCAR fans, but it doesn't even have to be NASCAR specific. Something that anyone from my audience would like. Something that you have and love and think others would love as well. I'll give you an example. I love my massage gun. I use it regularly. So drop in the comments what you'd like to see added to the store, and I'm going to pick one of those items suggested, buy it, and give it away. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. We covered a ton, and I want to hear what you thought about it all. Let's start with driver comments. What did you think about the remarks of Carson Hocevar and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. about their little feud? And what about what Chase Elliott had to say about podium finishes? And what did you think about yesterday's race and the odd things that happened, including multiple blown brake rotors and Brad Keselowski making a mistake on pit road? And finally, what did you think of Keselowski's remarks on X about so many drivers still being sick? Thanks again for checking out the latest episode and supporting the channel. I really and truly appreciate it and hope you have a great rest of your day.